Hello, everyone. I'm Al Neely. Welcome to Listen Up. And today we have Tim Anderson, who's running for delegate for the 97th District of the House of the State of Virginia. Say hello to everyone.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming in. Ran into Tim at a voting booth. He was very cordial and said he would come on the podcast and just talk to us about his background. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Tim. Where are you from?
Born and raised in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
And as soon as I could, I got out of Springfield, Missouri and went to college down in Florida. Okay. And then I came up here to go to law school in the 90s. And I've been a lawyer since 1999. Primarily practicing in a small practice law firm now I own right here in Hampton Roads for the past now 26 years. Okay.
You served as the delegate for the 97th District several years ago. I think you resigned to run for Virginia's Senate.
Yep, that's correct. So I was elected to the 83rd District in 2021, which was the northern side of Virginia Beach over by Chicks Beach and part of Norfolk. And as soon as I got in, the redistricting occurred from the biannual census or the census that we have every 10 years. And they drew my seat away. Virginia Beach had lost population, so they took the seat that I had just won. They gave it to Fairfax, and I was essentially homeless on the next election cycle. So when I was looking at what my next step would be, I would either have to run against a fellow Republican that I was drawn in with, or I could run for an open Senate seat, which I chose to run for that open Senate seat unsuccessfully, did not win that. And so at the same time I didn't win that Senate seat, the Republican that I was paired with lost her seat to Michael Fagans, who's our Democrat delegate now for this district. Right. So now I'm chasing my old seat back that I chose not to run for because of all of that drama. And we're, back in the middle of this. So it was the 83rd. Now it's the 97th. They just renumbered everything. And the good part of this 97th district is something I previously represented.
Okay. So tell us what it was like for your first term. Tell us about the first term in the office.
Yeah. So I learned something very much in government, that you can't get anything done on your own. Like, I thought I was going to go up there and I was going to change things. I was going to get things done. And that's not how it works. That's not how the General Assembly works. That's not how any legislative body works. To get a bill from your idea to law is filled with minefields, pitfalls, trapdoors, and a lot of roadblocks along the way. And to actually get it into law requires the collaboration of all of your colleagues and colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And so you learn very quickly that if you want to be effective, you have to be collaborative with the other side, because you need them and they need you when we're trying to move legislation through the General Assembly. So I learned that very, very quickly, because my first term, I didn't get anything done. I got one bill all the way through, and then it didn't get funded. So that was kind of a disappointment. I got a lot of bills out of the House. The Republicans controlled it then, but the Democrats controlled the Senate, and the Senate killed all my stuff except for one. And so
who was the governor at that time?
It was Governor Youngkin. I went in with Youngkin.
Okay.
But it don't matter who's governor. If you can't get it through the Senate, right, nothing's getting to the governor. And so second year, I got 4 bills through, substantial legislation through, just by pivoting away from I'm a Republican and we're going to do it my way to I need to start creating legislation and partnering with Democrats, because we have to work with them in Virginia. No party has a 100% control of government here. And so I learned that. And so my second year, I went from not very effective in my first year to in the second year being the most bipartisan legislator in the entire General Assembly, because I just leaned into it and got along with them.
What bills did you work on with the Democrats?
The bill I'm most happy about getting through was changing the statute of limitations on when sexual assault victims can sue doctors and pastors. There was a provision that would make that as low as 2 years, and we moved that out to 15 years because people that have been abused by doctors, especially pastors, they need a little time to heal and realize what happened to them. And so we were able to get that through. I had a chief Democrat co-patron that bill with me, and we were able to get that into law. That's the law right now. Now, victims who were abused by people in authority have a lot more time now to bring lawsuits against their abusers. I got a oyster bill through. I'm very, very much in love with the Chesapeake Bay. It's a disaster. The water quality is terrible. So we got an oyster bill through that creates more oyster growth, and that's really important for the Chesapeake Bay. I got a bill dealing with the litter tax, which is just a penalty tax that goes on businesses. We got that. This penalty on the penalty reduced. So I mean, I did some good things, right? And there's law right now in Virginia because of the time I was there, and I can't say that for my first year. And so going back to the General Assembly, and I hope to do that next year. I'm going in with a much different attitude that regardless of who's in power, the Democrats have the Senate. Hopefully my team will have the House, and who knows, we'll have the governor. But it's all about working together to get stuff done in Virginia.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the issues that I feel like Virginians are concerned about, and just give me your thoughts on them. Right now, education, and I'm hearing about that quite a bit. Housing.
Yep.
Yeah. Just talk about those two things. Education is a really big one,
yep,
as well as women's rights. So
sure.
we
can talk all day about these things.
Yeah.
But I'll be brief.
I'm pretty sure you're going to be talking about them a lot for the next few months, but go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So education. I think my side's biggest concern is that children's destinies are governed by the zip code that they live in. And if you live in a particular zip code, you go to this particular school. And this particular school may not be a very good school. But over here, this zip code has really good schools and really good results. And we've been really trying to find ways to empower parents to give them options and choices. If the public school system isn't right for their child, if the public school system isn't performing at a level that a parent would want it to perform, we want parents to have more of an option of how to get their children into something that would make their child successful. So for us, and for me especially, one thing that I want to see is portability in the public school system. My son in Virginia Beach goes to Old Donation, which is the gifted school in Virginia Beach. And for the gifted school, we'll bus kids all over the place. Doesn't matter where you live. You can, if you live out in Creeds, way out in Pungo, or if you live in Bayside, they're going to bus kids all over to go to this school. What I'd like to see is portability amongst all the schools in Virginia. So if you live in a school system in Virginia Beach and that school building is not performing, you should be allowed to take that kid and put him over in this other school if there's a vacancy. And we have vacancies in almost every school in Virginia. There's room to move kids around. That doesn't cost anything, and the buses are already running around like crazy anyway. So I think that could be something that we could do without defunding the public school system. I think giving parents that option.
So you're not in favor of defunding the school?
I'm not saying we kick the legs out of the public school system, but we are pouring more and more money into the school system every year, and we're getting worse and worse results. And so there's something wrong with what we're doing, and that has to be addressed, right? And that has to be comprehensively addressed. A lot of people are just withdrawing, and they're homeschooling. African American families are the highest cultural race in the entire country that are pulling their kids out and putting their children in homeschooling. And so I think that's a product of exactly what I'm talking about. I think families that might live in poorer neighborhoods have schools that aren't performing, and the parents want more for their children and they know they can do better at home. So if a parent wants to homeschool, I think we should support that decision. I think we should provide financial resources to those people if that's what they want to do with their children. And we saw this year, Senator Stella Persky produced a bill that said we want to take away religious exemptions for parents and in the homeschool environment. I think I would want to rush more into that and give that. And if that means pulling some money out of the public school system to support families, I'd be for that. I'd also be supportive of families having the opportunity to go to private schools. And the idea is that I think the parent is the best decision maker for what's right for their child. And I don't think we should continue to adopt that this broad public school system is the only option that we should allow for families. Every child has different needs. Every child has different goals. And some kid may be an artist. Some kid may be an engineer. Some kid may like computers. Right. Some kid may like athletics. Mm-hmm. And they just should have that ability to port around in a big place like Virginia Beach. Now, maybe that doesn't matter so much in a place like Nelson County, where there may only be one high school in the whole school system. But out here in Virginia Beach and the big cities and the big communities, it could really, really change things. And then eventually, if you are in a situation where the neighborhood doesn't want to go to that public school anymore, mm-hmm. close that school down and move the resources to a more performing school. And that's eventually, I think how you can realign it. But I don't think that pouring more money in is the solution. We have to start figuring out why aren't we performing and how do we get kids to perform. So I do have a school choice option, voucher option that I think parents should have the ability to perform in, because ultimately they're the best judges for their children. Housing, I sat with a bunch of builders, and here's builders, right? So you buy a big tract of land, right? And you can build, a $500,000 house for $200,000 in labor and materials on a big plot of land, and you can do that, 50 or 100 times and make a ton of money. Or you can build small houses, and the profit margin is much lower, and you don't make as much money. So the builders aren't incentivized to build the smaller economic housing. And so we've got to figure out a way in government to give the incentives. And when I talked to builders about this just last week, they said that there is so much red tape and regulation in getting a building permit, whether you're building a $500,000 house or a $100,000 house. The regulation is so expensive that it's just not worth it for them to build a small house. And so we've got to look at that, right? We've got to look at what is government doing wrong here?
So what do you think it is?
I think government is in the way. And I think that we're in a free market. If you give people the right incentive, the market will create that supply. And what we've done is we've created regulations in government that have incentivized builders to build bigger houses and make more money that way. We need to use government and incentivize them to either provide tax breaks to the builders, provide land that the government owns that could be used to incentivize the builders to build on it. There's so many things we could do, mm-hmm. but we're not. And we just want to complain about, how to, the housing is so expensive. I read an article, you have to make $100,000 to buy a $400,000 house in today's market. Now, if interest rates drop, maybe that changes, but ultimately $100,000 to buy just a mediocre house in Virginia Beach, $400,000 house is nothing special, right? No kid can do that. No 25-year-old kid coming out of college can do that. Families can't really do that because if, that's $100,000 with no debt. Everybody has student loan debt. Everybody has other debt. So it's so expensive to buy a house that people just can't afford to do that. So the only real way to fix that is you got to start building houses that are cheaper. and create the demand at the lower end, in the $150,000 to $250,000 range, smaller houses, and give people the incentives. Democrats have proposed a bill, and it's in law now, that there's a $10,000 first-time home buyer credit, which is great. That pays all your closing costs, for the most part. But we just have to create that demand, and so government needs to be reworked to create incentive to builders to build the smaller houses.
Is that something you could do at the state level?
It's entirely at the state level. And I think one thing you gotta do is you gotta take it away from the localities. So the localities can kind of control how much they charge for building permits and how they control zoning. And I think you have to take some of that power away from the locals so that the cities don't have so much incentive. Cities like Suffolk still have proffers, where a builder has to literally, in any other industry, that's called a bribe, right? But in government, it's called a proffer. So if a builder wants to build an apartment complex, they have to give the city millions of dollars, for a school proffer or a road proffer. And we've got to find ways to incentivize those builders to build not rental properties, but lower end affordable houses that are not cheap, not run down. They're just smaller, so that families can live in a 1,000 square foot house again, like we used to, and they can afford that. Sure, you can build wealth over your life and build into a bigger house, but we should be able to afford a 1,000 square foot house in Virginia Beach that's of good quality for a couple $100,000. And so I think we can do that at the state level, 100%. I mean, some of the things are controlled by the federal government with tariffs and all that stuff, but on supply. But fundamentally, I think you could do it by using the land that we have and incentivizing the builders to build, to do it. And if you do it, it's field of dreams. If you do it, they will come. And if you build it, they will come. And they will come if we do it. And I talked to those builders this past week, and they said if we had the right incentive to do it, we would do it. But they're there to make money, and they're making money in the $600,000 to $800,000 houses right now, which nobody can afford unless you're, at my level. And that's not what we have to do. We have to find people that are in the $60,000 to $100,000 level that can get them back into home ownership.
Gotcha. So the people, what percentage of what's your demographic makeup of your area? What would you say
like
in terms of
race or ethnicity or
income? Well, yeah. What's the average income?
60,000.
Okay.
So I'm talking to the people I'm representing. Like this part of Virginia Beach is the regular middle class bread and butter of our community. And, a lot of them own homes if they're older because they bought those homes 30 years ago, but they can't afford to sell them because there's nowhere to go. So they're living in their houses because they really can't afford to live in their house. Heck, out in Aragona, in Virginia Beach, those houses all sold for $25,000, back in the 60s when they were built. And now they're worth $400,000. It's crazy. So yeah, we've got to work. And, I can't control the market. I can't tell the people in Aragona, you should sell your house for $300,000 because it's the right thing to do. But what we can do is create smaller houses that are cheaper for people to buy. And I think that's how you can use government to kick that into gear.
I see.
And then, be nice if the interest rates would drop, but that's above my pay grade.
It'd be help.
If the interest rates could drop, that would be great.
Yeah.
But that's above my pay grade. I can't control that. Neither can the president, apparently. That's a Federal Reserve thing. So if interest rates are going to stay at 7%, it really does box people out of home ownership.
I see. I think I read in the last few days, it's the first time that Virginia has lost jobs and any employment numbers came in. I think they were down jobs. What do you think is contributing to something like that?
So Virginia is the only state in the nation where we had a 0.1% decrease in employment. So we had a negative. No other state had that.
Right.
So, but you have to look at more than that. Virginia's added 35,000 jobs this year, and mostly high-tech jobs in the fields of AI. So we are adding really good high-tech jobs. The federal government got slashed and dashed by, the
incoming. You think there are more federal jobs that we're losing?
We lost a lot of federal jobs. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Mostly up in Northern Virginia. That happened.
Talked to a few people here that have done that as well.
That's right. Yeah. So that's a factor for Virginia. But we've added a lot of jobs. Governor Youngkin created this website called virginiahasjobs.com, and there's 200,000 jobs in Virginia right now. So what you're seeing is kind of a transition from these federal workers into other jobs. They're working for state, local government, they're working for private corporations now, and there's this transition. But Virginia is still about 0.5% lower than the federal average of unemployment. So although we went up a little bit on the percentages, we're still well below the federal average of all the states in the nation. And I think what we have to see Virginia as is, we're going through a little bit of growing pain. At the state level, I can't do anything with what President Trump's doing with the federal government and the federal job reductions and all that. But what we can do is when a federal worker loses his job, we can say, look, we have a job here in the city of Virginia Beach, kind of similar to what you were doing. Or we have a job here at the Department of Health, something that you were doing for the federal government. Or look, Capital One's over here. They need people in this industry. The people at the shipyard, they're begging for workers, if you're more of a tradesperson. So it's just about getting these workers and getting them plugged in. And I think before the end of the year, you're going to see Virginia's going to really tick up in employment growth. Now, I know my friends on the other side of the aisle don't want to see it that way. They want to make this a big deal. But overall, 35,000 new jobs, mostly high-paying AI jobs. And I think what's happened is you saw those federal workers transitioning over to the private sector, and they're getting really great jobs. And that's in that Virginia Has Jobs plug-in that Governor Youngkin put together. So for us to only lose 0.1%,
right,
with all the slash and dashing that happened, I think that's pretty remarkable, actually. And I think that's just a remarkable factor of how vibrant Virginia is in the other sectors, government and private sectors.
I see. Another one of the main issues that I'm hearing out there is women's rights. Okay, and Virginia has been one of the few states that has been able to protect the women's rights because of the makeup of the representation. What is your position on that?
Yeah, so I've looked at it. If you look at the polling on this question, should women have the right to have an abortion? Overwhelmingly, 75%, right? But then if you read the second question, should there be some kind of a restriction on the time period and of when a woman can get an abortion? 90% say there should be some type of a restriction. So here's the way I read that poll. Virginia has restrictions of when you can have an abortion, and that's at the end of the second trimester. If you try to have an abortion after that, it has to be for a medical reason, and 3 doctors have to agree. I think what Virginians are saying is stop trying to change the law in Virginia. Leave it alone. And that's how I read the polls. And that's why I said in the very beginning on abortion, anything with the word abortion in it is going to be a no for me. If you're trying to restrict abortion, I'm going to say no. If you're trying to expand abortion, I'm going to say no. I think what voters want is they just want government to say, stop messing with it, leave it alone. Virginia has its laws, and talk about something else. And that's what I've decided I'm going to do. I'm not going to support anything. If it has the word abortion in it, I'm going to say no. Whether it's something my team would want or something the other team would want, I'm just going to say no across the board because I think that's what voters want.
Okay. So what issues are you hearing? You said you've been door knocking.
Yeah.
Okay. Where have you been door knocking? Aragona?
Yeah. Well, Aragona's not my district anymore, but it's across the street from Aragona. Okay. But like over here in the Bow Creek area, and
what have you been hearing?
People can't pay for anything. They're using their credit cards to pay for commodities.
Yeah.
They can't pay for their groceries.
Cost of living.
That's right. They can't pay it. And in my law practice, I'm a bankruptcy attorney, and I filed 5 bankruptcies today for clients. a couple months ago, we might have filed 5 bankruptcies a month.
How long have you been in practice?
26 years.
Okay. Is this period the time that you've experienced that the most? Are there more people filing now?
It is ticking up rapidly. And so people can't afford to live in Virginia Beach. They just can't. And so what they want me to do is, what can I promise them to make it more affordable in Virginia? Well, I can't control the price of eggs. I can't tell Tyson how much to charge for a chicken. So all I can do is, what can I do to make it less burdensome to live here? And that's taxes. The car tax is outrageous. Costs most families about $1,000. Nobody ever has the money. It hits them right in summertime when they want to go on a family vacation, and they, now they have to pay the government $1,000 for their cars rather than take their kids, on a nice little summer vacation somewhere. So we can get rid of that, and we don't have to run the government down to get rid of it.
How would you propose getting rid of it?
Virginia has $5 to $7 billion of surplus every year.
Yes.
And it's projected for 10 more years. Even with all the federal cuts and everything, we're still projected to have surpluses every year. So if we take $1 billion of that money and we subsidize the localities, we can eliminate the car tax for the first $40,000 of car vehicles for every person in Virginia. So if you have a car and it's worth $30,000, you won't pay a single dollar in tax. If you have a car that's worth $60,000, your first 40 grand is exempt. You pay tax on the other 20. Fine. Because if you have a nicer car, you probably have a little bit more money. But it's going to take the tax off the minivans and take the tax off of the vehicles that, that families need to get their kids around. And it would only cost $1 billion a year. And that's a good investment to Virginia. Now, we can tell the voters, look, this is all conditioned upon us having a surplus. If we run out of surplus someday, maybe you're going to have to start paying taxes again. But Gilmore did it for the first 20,000, and we've had that since 1997. So I think if we build that into the budget, I don't think any politician on the face of the earth would ever take it out, because it would be so politically unpopular that, whatever party is doing that would lose control at the next election cycle. We would make it work. The next thing we can do is we could really take a hard look at how to phase out state income tax, just like Tennessee has done, just like North Carolina is doing. There's a way to reduce and eliminate the state income tax while increasing the consumption tax.
Okay.
And when you see that happening in places like Tennessee, their economies are exploding. Just absolutely growth in every metric. North Carolina's growth in every metric. We are one of 15 states that still taxes veterans' retirement. When I was in the General Assembly, we got the first 40,000 exempt, but we're one of only 15 states. This is the biggest naval base in the country. Veterans leave here because we tax their retirement, and we can get rid of that.
When they used to come here for
a
quality of living.
That's right. So we want those veteran retirees to stay in Virginia because they're contributing taxpayers. They have nice houses. They are good citizens. We want them here, but they're all moving to Moyock. Moyock is the Silicon Valley of the East Coast. Everybody's moving to Moyock and getting all the benefits of Virginia by living on the border. But those veterans are down there all living there because they don't have to pay taxes on their retirement. That's crazy. We've got to bring those people back and stop them from leaving. But all I can do, and look, I'm a realistic guy. I can't fix everything, but I can make it to where we don't pay as much tax.
Right.
And if you don't pay as much tax, and I can get you $1,000 more a year in your pocket, that's going to mean a lot to people that make $60,000 a year with kids.
Right.
And that's my pledge.
Right.
And the nice thing is that the Democrats have always been opposed to this, but now Abigail Spanberger comes out and says she's endorsing exactly the plan that I've been talking about. She's not saying she endorses Tim Anderson's plan, but she's saying, yeah, we'll use the budget surplus to give people this car tax relief. So that's really nice because Winsome Sears is saying the same thing. So whichever one of those two win as governor, we could really see the car tax go away next year as long as we, have the political will to do it in the General Assembly. So pretty excited about that.
Okay. So Doesn't matter. You're willing to work with Miss Spanberger or Miss Sears. It doesn't matter. Huh?
That's right. I mean, I'd rather it be Miss Sears, but on that issue,
yes,
it's great, and that's great for Virginians.
Okay.
And you know what? At the end of the day, I know that if it's Abigail Spanberger as our governor, I gotta write a bill and get it through this minefield of the General Assembly that she's gonna sign. No reason to do all that and it get vetoed, which is what they did this year. You know, they just ran all this stuff through and it all just got vetoed. Why do that? You got to carry a bill that your governor's gonna sign. So yeah, if she's the governor, it's gonna be different than if Winsome Sears is the governor. Right. But yeah, you have to.
You know what? The people in your district are, you know, if your team Virginia. No.
That's right.
That's what's most important.
There's no greater district in this entire Commonwealth than House District 97 when it comes to true 50-50. Nobody can predict how this race is going to go because the voters, they flip. They all voted for Harris, right, for president, and then they didn't vote for Jen for the congressperson, but then they vote like 3-1 for Bobby Dyer for our mayor, who's a Republican mayor. So that district will vote for the person that they know is going to represent them, not for the political party. So it is.
They think is going to represent them.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So when you're door knocking, you said you've door knocked quite a bit. What is the makeup? The racial makeup of the district, would you say? It's
about 65% white, 20% black, and then the rest is Hispanic and Asian.
Yeah. So are you hearing a lot of the same things when you're talking to each demographic?
I mean, when I have this shirt,
or is it?
I have this shirt that says I'm going to eliminate the car tax. That's what I wear when I'm door knocking. Everybody agrees.
Everybody
it doesn't matter who their race is, doesn't matter what their political party is.
Right.
They're like, I hate that tax. I want it gone. So it's always I'm always generally received well at the doors.
Yeah, taxes are a big concern. I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like the people in your district to know?
Well, I think a lot of veterans live in my district. I don't think I know a lot of veterans live in my district. And one thing that I've really been talking about, which is unique in my party, is the legalization of psilocybin mushrooms. Psilocybin mushrooms, as if you were in the 60s, these are the shrooms, is what all the hippies got high on, right?
Right.
But there's a real scientific basis that these mushrooms provide therapeutic healing to people with PTSD. And
depression as well. Right.
Depression as well, microdosing with depression.
Yeah.
So I think that we really have to create a therapeutic marketplace for psilocybin mushrooms. I don't want to see it sold on the streets for recreational purposes. I don't think there's any reason for that. But I do think that we should lean into the Colorado model and the Oregon model where they have created clinics. Doctors, will administer this and they administer it while you're in the clinic. And you see real healing for PTSD and depression. And I know the pharmaceutical companies hate it because it wipes out their billions and billions of dollars of drugs that they like to just cover up the symptoms. But at the end of the day, I think we really need to start talking about that. And I know it's not a super sexy concept, but it's something that I think would really benefit our veteran community here. In Virginia, war fighters that come back messed up, we need to do everything we can to try to heal them, not just cover up their symptoms, but actually heal them. And there seems to be a strong reason, scientific reason that we can get that done.
Yeah. Okay. What would you like to say? What would you like to leave us with? And then also tell everybody how they can get in contact with you. Sure. One of the things I will definitely say is, Tim is accessible. He's approachable. So we need to know how we can get in contact with you so we can express our ideas, concerns.
So one question I often get asked is what is the biggest challenge you have in politics? And the real problem, the number one challenge I think that we have in politics right now is tribalization. And we have gotten into this situation where
I think that's in society.
Yeah.
It's gotten to that point. Yeah.
I'm a Republican. You're a Democrat. You're bad, right? I'm good. That's how we see ourselves now. And vice versa, right. And we have got to start looking at each other as Americans with different ideas, that we all do have the same thing. We all want our kids to go to school and not get shot. We all want our, water to be clean. We all want the environment to be good for us and not get cancer because you're living next to high power power lines or whatever. We all want that, right? And so you may have a different way to get there than I do, but we've got to stop talking about each other like we're evil or we're bad or we're starting to shoot at each other. Like, that has to stop. And I think that is the duty of politicians right now, to start doing that. Politicians have to lead this. And when I talk to people on the doors, look, I'm a Republican. You might not like that, but I have a few ideas you may like. And if they'll give you a couple minutes and they see you're a reasonable person and you're not talking terrible about the other side, they'll listen to you, and we've got to start getting back to that. And I hope that I can set an example for that. And I'm guilty of sometimes getting a little wrapped up in this because politics is a battle, and sometimes you get into fight mode. But really, the governing is about everybody, and it's not about my team or their team. It's about how do we make it better for everybody. Right. So that's for me what I'm going to really be doing and trying to do and continue to do.
People over politics.
People over politics. And, at the end of the day, I'm never going to agree with Democrats on 20% of their issues, but I probably can find compromise on 80%, right? And if we could start doing that if the government could get 80% of the stuff done on an annual basis,
everybody's quality of life would be a lot better.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we don't have to just agree not to work with each other because we don't agree on 20%.
Right.
That's what has to change.
Right.
So anyway, my website is timforva.com, timforva.com. And way to reach out and communicate with me there. And hopefully, we'll continue to have these conversations.
Yes. Thank you for coming in and talking with us.
Yeah, good times.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for joining us on Listen Up. We'll catch you next time on Listen Up. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'm going to ask you to click on the links below, follow, subscribe, become part of the conversation. And remember, listen up.